What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors is pushed past his limit on live television? In just 31 seconds, a single disrespectful question transformed what should have been a routine morning interview into one of the most shocking walkouts in talk show history. Tom Hardy had arrived on set expecting nothing unusual. He'd done this hundreds of times over the course of his career. Sit down, smile, answer a few questions about the new film, share a funny anecdote, promote the project, shake hands and head out. Simple, predictable, professional. But that morning, something felt off the moment he walked into the brightly lit studio. Lorraine Kelly greeted him with her trademark warmth, her smile wide and polished, her posture relaxed. The cameras were already rolling, the audience watching, the air heavy with the hum of production equipment. Still, Tom settled in with the ease of someone who had mastered the rhythms of press tours. "Tom, lovely to have you here." Lorraine began cheerfully as he sat down on the couch. "Let's talk about your new film." Tom nodded, ready. He had poured months into the project. Months of difficult scenes, endless training, long days and longer nights. The film mattered to him, not just as an actor but as a storyteller. "It's a passion project," he began, his voice steady. "We worked really hard to tell this story the right way. The character goes through a lot, and I wanted to make sure we honored that journey." Lorraine smiled back, but there was something behind it. Something sharper than the polite veneer she usually wore. Before Tom could continue, she waved her hand casually, almost impatiently. Yes, the character," she said. "But what I really want to know is when you're going to do a proper film, something people actually want to see." The studio fell silent. A moment of disbelief rippled through the air. Tom blinked once, slowly, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "I'm sorry, what?" Lorraine laughed, as though her words were harmless, as though she hadn't just dismissed months of his work in front of millions of viewers. "Oh, come on, Tom," she said lightly. "All these dark, serious films you do, so depressing, so grim. Don't you want to do something fun? Something with a bit of sparkle, maybe a romantic comedy? Show us that smile." It was then that Tom's expression shifted. His jaw tightened, his shoulders squared, and the warmth left his face. Still, he kept his voice calm. "The film I'm here to talk about is something I care deeply about," he said, choosing each word with care. "It deals with real issues that real people face." But Lorraine cut in before he could continue. "But nobody wants to be sad at the cinema, Tom. People want to escape. They want to laugh. They want to see you without all that brooding. You're always so serious, so intense. It's exhausting, really." Internally, Tom counted his breaths. "Stay professional," he reminded himself. "Just get through it." Out loud, he said, "I think audiences are smart enough to appreciate different kinds of stories. Not everything has to be light and fluffy." Lorraine gave another quick, dismissive laugh. "Light and fluffy? Is that what you think entertainment is?" she said, leaning back. "Tom, darling, I've been in this industry longer than you've been alive. I know what works, and these depressing films you keep making, they don't work. They're boring." She had actually said it, called his work boring, on live television, to his face. The air in the studio froze. Even through the bright lights and the camera lenses, the shift in Tom's demeanor was unmistakable. His face remained composed, but his eyes revealed everything: hurt, disbelief, frustration, and a rising sense of indignation. The insult wasn't subtle, it wasn't playful, it was deliberate. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I respect your opinion," he said, though the weight behind those words made clear that something inside him had irrevocably changed. And in that moment, those quiet, controlled 6 words, the atmosphere in the studio transformed. Everyone present knew the interview would not recover, and Tom Hardy, a man known for restraint, was just seconds away from doing what no one expected: walking out. "But I'm proud of the work I do." Tom said it with quiet conviction, the kind that came from years of dedication, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to his craft. But Lorraine didn't let the moment land. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs with the ease of someone who believed she held complete control of the room. "Are you, though?" she asked, her tone light but her intention unmistakably sharp. "Because it seems like you're hiding behind these tough guy roles. Maybe you're not confident enough to do something that requires real charm, real personality." The words lingered in the air like a toxin. Even the crew, seasoned professionals who had seen countless interviews from behind the camera, shifted uncomfortably. Something about the energy in the studio had changed. This wasn't teasing. This wasn't a challenging question. This was an attack, personal and unnecessary. Tom didn't answer immediately. He sat still, absorbing what had been said. Not confident enough, hiding. The insinuation cut deeper than the words themselves. This woman, whom he had never met before stepping onto this set, was casually questioning not only his career choices, but his very ability as an artist. "Lorraine," he said finally, his tone careful, deliberate. "I came here to talk about a film that means a lot to me, and to the entire team who made it. If you're not interested in having that conversation, then I'm not sure why I'm here." "Oh, don't be so sensitive," she replied immediately, flicking her hand at him as though brushing away a bit of dust. "I'm just asking the questions everyone's thinking. You take yourself so seriously. It's a bit much, isn't it?" Inside him, something shifted. Small but undeniable. Tom Hardy was no stranger to tough interviews. He'd handled aggressively probing journalists, awkward moments, even outright hostility. But this wasn't journalism. It wasn't probing. It wasn't even professional. This was mean, petty, cruel for the sake of being cruel. "You know what?" Tom said slowly, his voice dropping lower. "I don't think everyone's thinking that at all. I think that's just you." For the first time, Lorraine's smile slipped. Only for a second, but it was enough. She recovered almost instantly, though, lifting her chin, matching his firmness with an exaggerated sweetness. "Touched a nerve, have I?" she said, voice coated in condescension. "Look, Tom, if you can't handle a simple conversation without getting defensive, maybe you should stick to acting and leave the talking to people who are better at it." That was it. The line. The moment everything broke. Tom stood up, not abruptly, not for show, but with a calm finality that silenced the entire studio. The cameras kept rolling, catching every second. He reached up and unclipped his microphone with steady hands. "I'm not doing this," he said quietly. Lorraine's eyes widened. The confidence she had wielded so carelessly moments earlier began to crack. "Oh, come on, Tom, sit down." "Don't be ridiculous," she said, her voice slipping into something almost pleading. "We're just having a chat." "No," Tom replied, continuing to remove the mic. "We're not having a chat. You're insulting me and my work, and I'm not going to sit here and let that happen." "I'm insulting you," Lorraine repeated, her voice rising as she tried to regain control. "I'm asking you questions. This is what interviews are." "Interviews are conversations," Tom said, meeting her gaze with razor clarity. "And this isn't a conversation. This is you trying to belittle me for your own entertainment, and I'm done." He placed the microphone carefully on the arm of the couch, polite, precise, professional to the very last moment. "Tom, you're being completely unprofessional," Lorraine snapped, now fully exposed without the warm morning show veneer. "You can't just walk off my show." Tom paused, turned back toward her, looked her dead in the eye. "Watch me," he said simply. Then he walked. Not stormed, not dramatic. He walked with total dignity, his head high, moving past the cameras, past the stunned crew, past a silence so heavy it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. And as he reached the exit, one thing was unmistakable. It wasn't Tom Hardy who had lost control of the interview. It was Lorraine. Lorraine sat frozen on the couch, her mouth slightly open, stunned into silence. For a moment, she couldn't even pretend to recover. She had pushed too far, and she knew it. The realization flickered across her face just before she forced herself to look at the cameras again. "Well," she said awkwardly, trying to stitch together the confidence she had just lost. "I suppose some people can't handle honest conversation." She attempted a laugh, but her voice trembled. The polished morning show brightness had vanished. Every viewer watching could see the shift. She understood exactly what had happened. She had been disrespectful, dismissive, and unnecessarily cruel to a guest who had walked in with nothing but professionalism. And now the world had watched him calmly refuse to put up with it. Behind the cameras, the studio had erupted into quiet chaos. Producers scrambled, headsets buzzing with overlapping instructions. This was live television. A major Hollywood actor had just walked off the set. They had dead air to fill, a schedule to salvage, and a mess of damage control ahead of them. But Tom Hardy didn't care about any of that. He was already down the hallway, where his publicist rushed to meet him. Her expression was a mix of outrage and pride, anger at what had been done to him and admiration for how he handled it. "Are you okay?" she asked. Tom nodded. "I'm fine. Let's go." Back in the studio, Lorraine was still trying, desperately, to regain control. "We'll take a quick break," she told the cameras, her smile stretched thin and brittle. When we come back, we'll have a cooking segment. But no one was thinking about cooking. Not the viewers, not the crew, not the producers frantically signaling for commercials. Everyone was thinking about what they had just witnessed. A masterclass in standing up for yourself. A flawless example of knowing your worth. A moment of refusing quietly, calmly, firmly, to accept disrespect. The interview had begun perfectly normally. Tom had arrived on time, greeted everyone politely, sat down ready to promote his film. He had done everything expected of him. It was Lorraine who had taken things in a different direction. From the first dismissive comment about his work, she had set the tone, and she kept pushing it further, needling him again and again until the conversation was no longer an interview but an ambush. What made it worse was how she did it with a condescending smile, a patronizing tone, the behavior of someone who believed she held all the power in the room. She talked to him as though he were a child confused about his own career. She told him what audiences wanted, what films he should be making, what kind of actor he ought to be. She questioned his confidence, his versatility, even his talent. Who exactly did she think she was? Tom had worked for years, grueling years, to build the career he had. Years of auditions that went nowhere, roles that barely paid, endless hours spent proving himself. He had built a name by choosing complex characters, meaningful scripts, stories with depth. His choices were intentional, thoughtful, authentic. And there she sat in her comfortable studio chair, dismissing all of it with a flick of her hand and a smirk, calling his work boring, suggesting he wasn't good enough for comedy, acting as though his entire body of work was some mistake he needed to correct. The disrespect was breathtaking, and Tom's response, perfect. He didn't yell, he didn't snap, he didn't insult her in return. He simply removed himself, gracefully, calmly, with dignity. That was what made the moment so powerful. Lorraine had expected him to stay seated, smile politely, laugh off the insults. Because that's what guests usually did. They tolerated awkward questions, brushed off rude remarks, played along for the sake of the show. But Tom Hardy was not most guests, and he was not going to pretend this treatment was acceptable. When she told him he took himself too seriously, he stayed calm. When she called him sensitive, he tried to redirect the conversation. But when she crossed the final line, suggesting he wasn't capable of talking, that he should leave it to people better at it, that wasn't awkward or clumsy. It was cruel. She had tried to belittle him on her show, in front of her audience, for entertainment, and he walked away rather than let her succeed. And he wasn't having it. The instant Tom rose from his seat, you could see the panic flash across Lorraine's face. It was subtle but unmistakable, the look of someone who suddenly realized they had pushed too hard, too far, too fast. For all her years in television, for all her talk about knowing the industry inside and out, she had made one of the most basic, most critical mistakes a host can make. She had forgotten that the guest sitting across from her was a human being deserving of respect, not a prop for her entertainment. Her attempts to get him to sit back down were almost frantic. She called him ridiculous, accused him of being unprofessional, tried to scold him into compliance like he was a naughty child instead of a respected actor with a long, accomplished career. But Tom knew the truth, and so did everyone watching. The unprofessional one wasn't the guest. It was the host. She was the one who had turned a simple morning interview into an unnecessary personal attack. She was the one who had crossed the line from playful teasing into outright disrespect. And now she was discovering, in real time, what it looked like when someone refused to tolerate that treatment. Tom's publicist had probably warned him beforehand. Talk show hosts come with reputations. Some are warm and genuine, others sharp but fair, and a few hide cruelty behind a smile and call it entertainment. But Tom, being Tom, had most likely given Lorraine the benefit of the doubt. He expected professionalism. He expected a normal conversation. He had not expected to be ambushed. From the moment he sat down, it was clear something was off. Lorraine wasn't interested in his film or his work. She wanted a moment. A reaction. A crack she could exploit. Maybe she thought provoking him would make good television. Maybe she was having a bad morning. Maybe she genuinely believed the dismissive things she was saying about his career. Whatever the reason, she chose to use her platform to tear him down rather than lift up the project he was there to promote. But she had miscalculated, and not by a little. Tom Hardy wasn't a newcomer desperate for screen time. He wasn't an actor who needed this interview or needed her approval. He didn't owe the show anything. He certainly didn't need validation from Lorraine Kelly or her audience. So when she pushed him, he didn't crumble. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice or take the bait. He simply stood up, a simple act, a quiet act, and yet the most devastating response he could have given. Lorraine had hoped to embarrass him, to make him squirm, to create the kind of viral moment that morning shows dream about. And she did get her viral moment, just not the one she intended. Instead of footage of Tom looking defensive or uncomfortable, the world saw him calmly stand up for himself. No theatrics, no shouting, no drama, just clarity and dignity. The contrast between them was striking. Tom steady and composed, stating his boundary with a calm voice. Lorraine, growing more frantic by the second, as she tried to salvage control of a situation that had already slipped through her fingers. And then came the line, simple, direct, unforgettable. Watch me. With that he walked away. No grand declaration, no self-righteous monologue, no dramatic exit speech. Just a man who understood his worth and refused to let someone diminish it. He took off his microphone, placed it neatly on the arm of the couch, and left. Lorraine's final attempt to spin the situation, claiming he couldn't handle honest conversation, fell flat instantly. Everyone watching had seen the truth play out. That wasn't honesty. That was hostility disguised as banter. That was a host bullying a guest because she thought she could get away with it. And Tom refused to be bullied. Out in the hallway, away from the cameras and bright studio lights, Tom was likely processing the moment. The adrenaline of standing up for himself, the sting of being disrespected, the relief of walking away from a toxic exchange. His publicist was probably already on the phone, preparing statements, arranging responses, fielding calls about the incident. But Tom didn't need to worry. He had made the right choice. He showed in real time that there is a line you never have to let someone cross. And when they do, you never have to sit there smiling and pretending it's okay. The interview had been scheduled for 10 full minutes. The kind of comfortable, routine segment meant to promote a film, exchange a few light jokes, and send the audience off with a smile. Instead, it lasted barely 4 minutes, from a friendly greeting to a stunned, airless silence. 4 minutes for Lorraine to dismantle whatever credibility she believed she possessed. 4 minutes for Tom to deliver an unexpected masterclass in self-respect. Looking back at the exchange, every comment Lorraine made seemed worse than the one before it. She started by dismissing his film, calling it not proper, brushing off his work as too grim, too depressing, too heavy for audiences to enjoy. Then she moved on to him, his personality, his choices, even his temperament. She suggested he couldn't do comedy, that he was exhausting, boring, unconfident, too serious, too sensitive. Each remark was a small jab, perfectly timed and precisely aimed to get under his skin. Individually, maybe Tom could have shrugged them off, but together, they formed a clear picture. She wasn't interested in interviewing him. She was interested in attacking him. And for what? What had Tom done to deserve that treatment? He'd shown up early, been polite, tried to talk about his new project. He'd done exactly what any guest is expected to do. That's what made the whole thing so jarring. It's sheer unfairness. And that's why his decision to leave carried so much power. He didn't owe her his patience. He didn't owe her his calm in the face of disrespect. He didn't owe her anything, especially after she repeatedly interrupted him, talked over him, and dismissed his attempts to discuss the work he'd spent years crafting. She'd shown her true colors. She didn't care about his answers. She'd already planned the narrative, and his job, in her mind, was simply to sit there and endure it. But Tom refused to play that role. The moment that revealed everything was the laugh. That condescending, dismissive laugh, sharp, short, calculated. The kind of laugh meant to belittle, to signal superiority, to entertain an audience at someone else's expense. She thought she was clever. She thought she was in control. She thought this was all just good fun. But it wasn't fun for him. It was humiliating. Or rather, it would have been if he'd allowed it to continue. Instead, he took the power back. He stood up. He removed his microphone with deliberate calm. And then he spoke, not with anger but with clarity. "You're insulting me and my work." Simple. Direct. Unshakably true. Lorraine scrambled to reframe the moment, claiming she was just asking questions, just having a chat. But everyone watching could see right through it. The excuses were paper thin. The damage was already done. The brilliance of Tom's walkout was its simplicity. There was no dramatic speech about dignity, no heated exchange, no attempt to school her on professionalism. He didn't need any of that. He simply removed himself from a situation where he was not being treated with basic respect. That was enough. That was everything. It became a lesson for everyone watching. You don't have to tolerate mistreatment. You don't have to smile through disrespect. You can simply stand up and walk away. Lorraine's attempt to call him unprofessional for leaving was almost comical. She had spent the entire interview behaving unprofessionally, interrupting, mocking, belittling, and now she wanted to reclaim moral authority. Tom saw the truth instantly. His final words said everything. Watch me. 2 words that carried the weight of a boundary firmly set. 2 words that meant I don't need to argue with you. I don't need to explain myself. I'm done, and you can't stop me. In that moment, Lorraine lost all her power. The host, the one who is supposed to command the room, was suddenly powerless as her guest walked away. She tried to save face with a shaky remark about honest conversation, but her voice betrayed her. She knew she had pushed too far. She knew the audience wasn't on her side. They had heard the tone. They had seen the disrespect. They had watched Tom try to redirect the conversation, only to be shut down again and again, and they understood exactly why he left. That's the thing about standing up for yourself. When you do it with calm, clarity, and dignity, people respect it. They recognize someone who knows their worth, someone who won't be cornered or diminished. Tom Hardy walked off that set with his head held high, while Lorraine Kelly was left sitting alone, struggling to explain her behavior. The interview was supposed to be about Tom's new film, a project he cared deeply about, a story he wanted to share, work he was genuinely proud of. But in the end, it became about something far more important: respect, boundaries, and the power of choosing to walk away. And that is a story worth telling.